What if one of the most famous women in Hollywood spent her entire life hiding the emotional cost of becoming a star before she was even old enough to understand the world around her? Long before Elizabeth Taylor became a global icon, before the diamonds, the scandals, the legendary romances, and the unforgettable violet eyes that fascinated millions, she was just a child pushed into a world built for adults. Born on February 27, 1932, in London to American parents, Elizabeth Taylor entered life during a period of uncertainty and global tension. But few could have predicted that this quiet little girl would one day become one of the most recognizable faces in cinematic history. From a very young age, people noticed something unusual about her. Not just beauty, presence. A magnetic quality that cameras seemed unable to ignore. By the age of 9, she had already signed her first studio contract with Universal Pictures. Childhood for Elizabeth Taylor did not unfold like it did for ordinary children. While others were learning who they were, she was already being watched, styled, photographed, and transformed into an image for public consumption. Then came National Velvet in 1944. The film changed everything. Audiences didn't just see talent, they saw vulnerability, emotion, and a maturity far beyond her age. Almost overnight, Elizabeth Taylor stopped being simply a child actress and became a phenomenon. But fame at such a young age carries consequences few people truly understand. Hollywood during the 1940s and 1950s was glamorous on the surface, but behind closed doors it operated through power, control, and intense pressure. Young stars were expected to grow up quickly. Studios controlled appearances, behavior, relationships, even identities. And Elizabeth Taylor was growing up directly in the center of that machine. As she entered her teenage years, she became surrounded by some of the most powerful men in entertainment, politics, and high society. Public fascination with her beauty intensified constantly. The attention she received was no longer the attention given to a child star. It became something far more complicated. Years later, Taylor would speak openly about how difficult it was to grow up under relentless public scrutiny. The world admired her beauty, but few stopped to consider what it meant for a teenager to become an international obsession before emotional adulthood had even begun. Every appearance became a headline. Every friendship became speculation. Every relationship became public property. And despite the glamour surrounding her life, Elizabeth Taylor often carried a visible emotional loneliness beneath the image Hollywood created for her. What made her remarkable was not just her success, but her survival. Because over the decades, she endured heartbreak, public scandals, health crises, addiction struggles, and overwhelming media pressure, all while remaining one of the most captivating figures Hollywood had ever produced. But perhaps the deepest tragedy of old Hollywood was this. Many young stars were celebrated before they were protected, admired before they were understood, and transformed into symbols long before they were allowed to become fully human. Elizabeth Taylor's story is not simply about fame. It is about what fame takes from a person when it arrives too early. The loss of privacy, the loss of innocence, the pressure of constantly being watched, and the exhausting reality of carrying an image the world refuses to let go of. Yet despite everything, Elizabeth Taylor never disappeared beneath that pressure. She evolved, she fought, she survived, and in later years, she transformed herself into something even more powerful than a movie star. A woman unafraid to speak honestly about pain, vulnerability, illness, love, and survival. That is why Elizabeth Taylor remains unforgettable, not only because of her beauty, but because behind the beauty was a real human being, trying to survive a world that often treated her more like a symbol than a person.